Part 248. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2475. There were too many people who came to pick up people, so they directly blocked the road in front of Huangchuang. Bai Shan and the others came out a little late. When they arrived, they were blocked on the road. It was too blocked to move forward 200 meters away. Man Bao squeezed out his medicine box, handed the medicine box to Daji, grabbed Bai Shan's outstretched hand, and jumped up gently before getting on the carriage. Bai Shan pulled her into the car, took the medicine box that Daji handed in and put it in the car, and then said to her, "I knew there were a lot of people here today, but I didn't expect so many." Man Bao glanced out the car window. It's understandable that they are worried. Bai Shan also nodded. "Don't talk about them, even His Majesty is not at ease." He said, "Some time ago, His Majesty asked Xiao Yuanzheng to ask questions every day. Lord Wei and Lao Tang were both there. Every day Xiao Yuanzheng went in and reported that everything was normal before they went out of the palace with confidence." Man Bao was curious, "Are you in front of the imperial palace every day now?" Bai Shan shook his head. "Those who will be on duty at the Hanlin Academy for 3 to 5 days will only go when His Majesty is summoned by name. As for Hanlin, they usually study and cultivate books. It is impossible for them to cultivate new books in Hanlin. They can only help the seniors, check the information, and write some small notes. More often, it is to transcribe some official documents, sort out the old depreciation and put it on file, and hand it over to the historian who needs to revise the history. This is a daily task. The non-daily task is to be called by the emperor into the palace to sort out the books, draft edicts, or accompany the emperor to read, ask about politics, play chess, etc. That's right, Hanlin also has another responsibility, that is, to accompany the emperor to study and play chess, just like the Chongguan Pavilion is to the prince. Bai Shan is currently the most diligent person to be called in the Hanlin Academy. At present, he has become acquainted with officials above the 4th rank of Beijing Middle School. There is no way, these people often report things to the emperor, and they are also the people who most often attend small court meetings. Basically, Bai Shan sees them every day. It's also because of this that the entire court now knows that Bai Shan has a bright future. Didn't you see how enthusiastic everyone was towards Zhou Man when he came to pick him up today? Man Bao was overjoyed, reached out and patted his shoulder. "Work hard, by the way, can you take a few days off?" "Bai Shan, what do? You and Bai are come to inoculate cowpox, so that we will be safer when we go out." "Bai Shan, that's not just a few days. At least 12 or 3 days, right?" Bai Shan thought about it and said, "I have to ask Shangguan." Bai Shan twitched a bit when he said this, and said with a blushing face, "But I'm taking a long vacation now, so I won't be able to take it later." Man Bao was curious, "What are you going to do on a long vacation later?" Bai Shan looked up at her and said, "My grandmother has hired someone for 3 days. Your parents have already chosen to get married on the 8th day of the October lunar month, and they will definitely take a long vacation by then." Man Bao was stunned for a moment, his heart beating wildly. So fast. Bai Shan said, "It's not too soon, the date should have been set long ago." Man Bao's cheeks were a little red, and he asked calmly, "Is this day really set?" Bai Shan nodded affirmatively, and whispered to her, "You also have to tell Xiao Yuanzheng early, you have to make time for you in October." Man Bao blushed and nodded, suddenly feeling a little fluttering in his heart, and strange, is he about to get married? Man Bao murmured, "It's been less than 3 months. Bai Shan nodded. Mrs. Liu has set 3 dates, one is on the 23rd of the 8th month, which is closer to now, but the olds who chose the 8th day of the 10th lunar month, which seems a little reserved, although they have been prepared a long time ago. But you can't marry Man Bao in such a hurry, can you?" And the reason why Mrs. Lu has let people count the days is because she is waiting for a reply from Long Zhou. Bai Shan whispered to Man Bao, some time ago someone came from Long Zhou. He suppressed his joy and said, they returned all the ancestral property that they robbed from my family before. What did they say? I was young and couldn't stand up to stand, so the family took over to help with the management. Bai Shan snorted coldly when he said this. What else can I say, because my mother was young at the time and didn't want to keep her daughter for a long time, so I was afraid that she would remarry with her ancestral property. Humph, let's not say that my mother won't remarry, even if she remarries, it will be fine. And my grandmother, is it my turn to call the shots for me? Man Bao asked, are they all back? Bai Shan nodded, some of them haven't come back, so they will use other places to top it. Anyway, it's good or bad. Besides those things, they also sent some assets, saying that it was a wedding gift from the family. I will be there next year. If you should start a family and start a business, etc., it means rebuilding the old good. He said, grandmother used the money they gave and added some more, and bought a second-class yard in Changqing Lane, which is only slightly smaller than the one where Brother Hall lives now. The yard where Bai Dalan lives now is the place where Manbao and the others rented before. The yard is not bad, but there is a small garden on the backside. The yard that Mrs. Lu bought this time is a small garden, but that the yard faces south, the sunshine is particularly good, and the room inside is also spacious. Mrs. Lu fell in love with it at a glance. Moreover, the house in the capital is not worried about selling, but only worrying about buying it. She was looking for this house last year, and she has been waiting in line. The people in front of her don't want to ask her, and then she settled down. It's just that the money has not been settled, in order to wait for the money from Long Zhou. Bai Shan said, would you like to take a look? Grandma said that our marriage will be held there, and we will move back to Zhou's house when the three dynasties return. Man Bao's eyes brightened, and he nodded again and again, okay, just the two of us. No, Bai Shan was also a little depressed, Bai Er and Yin or they passed by early in the morning. The house is not far from the hall, so they are all over there. Man Bao was also a little depressed. Instead of going home, they went directly to Changqing Lane. There are 3 alleys in front and back of Changqing Alley, and there are alleys connecting the alleys. The yard chosen by Grandma Lu is at the entrance of the alley, in the back row of Bai Dalan's yard, and there is a street behind it, so it has 2 front and back. The back door is not too small, you can enter the garden, maybe for convenience, there is a concierge at the back door, just next to the garden, you can live people, and you can park carriages and the like. Not to mention, although this yard is small, it has all the internal organs. She thinks it would be very good if only the 2 of them lived. Man Bao loves it. Bai Shan has already seen it once, and he couldn't help but be overjoyed when he saw it again, and also felt that this place was very good to be quiet in the middle of the noise. He took Man Bao's hand and went in through the back door, pointed to the flower bed in the garden and said, can't you always get some exotic flowers and plants? The big garden over at Zhou's house is not very crowded with people. Plant it here. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2476. In the 2-entry house, Mrs. Lu left the main courtyard to Bai Shan and the others to make a new house. It is already being furnished. The furniture and the like in the house have to be replaced with new ones. Mrs. Lu and Mrs. Zhang chose the first 2 rooms. Lest living with them would make them uncomfortable. Man Bao turned around and sighed, it's okay for the 2 of us to live, but it's really inconvenient to bring Grandma Lu and Aunt Zhang. It's still cool to be alone in a yard, even if you stay up late at night and read a book, no one knows. Bai Shan also thought so, and took her to see the main house. Grandma said that this house will not be rented out in the future, and it will be left for us to live in. In the future, we can leave a room to take care of it so that it will not be abandoned. In fact, Ms. Liu's original words were, if your husband and wife have nowhere to fight and quarrel in the future, you should come back and live here for 2 days, and then go back slowly. Bai Shan naturally didn't think he would fight and quarrel with Zhou Man to the point of running away from home, so he told Man Bao in another way. Man Bao was very happy, especially when he saw that the soil in the back garden was still fertile. So good, in the future, she can often buy all kinds of exotic flowers from the mall and plant them, and wait for it to bloom for a season to see what it will look like. When she doesn't like it, she will shovel it away and burn it. There are so many worries in the big garden at home. The more Man Bao thought about it, the more he liked it, so he said to Bai Shan, there's no need for so many rooms, just a concierge to guard the house. Occasionally clean the room, and we'll take care of the backyard ourselves. Man Bao paused and added, as long as we still live in the capital. Bai Shan understood and nodded, okay, I'll ask my grandmother to choose a loyal couple over to guard. Man Bao asked in a low voice, this yard is really for the 2 of us. Grandma Lu and Aunt Zhang still live with me, right? Bai Shan couldn't help laughing, yes, you said that, and my father-in-law kept it again and again. It's spacious over there, so naturally he lives there. Man Bao got excited and whispered, it's the chrysanthemum viewing season, I went back and bought a few pots of chrysanthemums. The last time I saw a chrysanthemum tree, it was as tall as a person, a big clump, but it bloomed. There are 6 kinds of flower colors, but there are pure colors, and there are also 2-color and 3-color mixtures, all of which are double petals, large flowers, which are particularly beautiful. It's just too strange, she can also have a look at the mall and dare not buy it. The seller said that she could cut it for her and put it in a box for express delivery, but what she likes is the fresh look of the whole plant. If you only buy flowers, there are no chrysanthemums like a single plant. If she has a yard of her own, she can buy everything she wants, and it's not very expensive anyway. As for the points, she still saved a lot. Bai Shan understood what she was thinking after hearing her describe it like this, so he pondered for a while and said, I'll tell my grandmother. The 2 gathered in the main room, while Bai Erlang and the others entered from the main entrance, and they came all the way in a lively way, only to enter the second courtyard, but no one could find them and shouted loudly, Bai Shan, where are you? Bai Shan pushed open the window. Bai Erlang was startled by the sound of him pushing the window. Seeing Man Bao standing beside him with a blushing face, he looked suspicious, what are you doing in the room? Bai Dalan, who just glanced at the 2 of them and looked away, reached out to pat him on the head when he heard the words, and almost slapped him on the ground, don't you know if you're wrong? Bai Erlang was aggrieved, I didn't say anything. Yin Or has also turned his eyes away, changed the subject and said, this yard is not bad, the light is excellent. Bai Erlang rubbed his head and said, the light is good, but the environment is not as good as that of my elder brother's yard. There is a tree in my elder brother's second yard. We used to read books and play chess under the tree to enjoy the shade. It's bare and there's nothing here. Bai Shan smiled and said, Grandma said it was time to open a flower bed on both sides and buy flower and tree seeds. He turned his head and said to Man Bao, don't you like plum blossoms? You can plant plum trees on both sides at that time. Man Bao's eyes brightened, and he said, actually, I also like peach blossoms and apricot blossoms. Well, pomegranate blossoms are also good. Bai Shan laughed and said, it's not difficult. There's a yard in the back. When the time comes, you can plant it by the roadside. The rest depends on what you want to plant. We'll plant another one. Man Bao became happy, and his heart fluttered, and the blushing on his face that had not receded became even redder. Bai Erlang is incomprehensible, is he so happy? Doesn't she have the boss a garden? Not enough for her? Bai Dalan followed them to see it up and down, and said to Bai Shan, "If you all live here, we can often stop by for meals." Bai Erlang complained aside, "Forget it, you all live there. Isn't it more convenient to visit from this yard to that yard?" Speaking of this, Bai Erlang was a little surprised when Bai Shan didn't refute his elder brother's words. "No, you want to move out." Bai Shan coughed lightly and said, "It's not easy to move out, but it's good to go out and live alone for a while occasionally." Man Bao nodded again and again. Bai Dalan glanced at Bai Erlang with the eyes of someone who had come over, and said, "You will know when you get married." Bai Erlang looked inexplicable. "What do you know? Wouldn't it be better to live there? The yard is not smaller than this, the room is bigger, the garden is bigger and more beautiful, and it's close to the imperial city. Why do you want to come out and live?" I thought this house was for one-time use, and it should be rented out when Bai Shan finished his worship. Bai Dalan reached out and patted him on the shoulder, and said, "My father and I said that if we put together some money, we will buy you a small yard in the capital." "I don't want it," Bai Erlang said. "Just give me the money to buy the house. I'll just live in the princess mansion." Speaking of the princess mansion, Bai Erlang excitedly said to Man Bao, "The Ministry of Industry has almost finished building Mingda's princess mansion. I took a look inside when I passed by last time, but it looks good, even better than your house. Bai Shandao, you should ask Tang uncle to buy you a small house. If there are still houses for sale in Changqing Lane, you can buy them here. If not, you can buy them nearby." Even Lu Huan nodded, "That's right, if it weren't for my big family, I would actually like to buy a yard myself to live in." "Yin," he said reservedly, "the mansion that your majesty gave me has been refurbished. I have already moved things in, but occasionally live outside. If you like, you can come to my house as a guest." Man Bao and the others were refreshed and asked, "You live alone?" Yin he nodded, "There are only some servants, but they are all selected by me, so they don't talk much and won't interfere with me." Except for Bai Erlang, everyone else looked at him with envy in their eyes. Bai Shan asked, "Why didn't you invite us to the greenhouse? Yin or Astay, do you still want to warm the room?" See you at 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2477. Man Bao and Bai Shan nodded again and again, and even Bai Dalan said, "How can you not warm the room when you move into a new house? Even Bai Erlang knows this rule, isn't your family doing it for you?" Yin he said, "My grandmother didn't really want me to move out, so I just moved things over now. It is estimated that because of this, she treats it as another courtyard, and doesn't really want to be a formal new house." Man Bao said, "It doesn't matter, we are free, we will warm your house tomorrow. Bai Shan, call Zhao Liaolang and Feng Zonping, everyone has a lively meal, and the stove can be turned on." Bai Dalan also said, "If I don't think it's lively enough, I'll bring my classmates too." Yin Or was moved, and said, "Enough is enough, just those of us who know each other well." So the topic was pulled off. After visiting Bai Shan's wedding room, everyone decided to go to Yin Or's house to take a look. By the way, they could buy some things, and they had to prepare more food for the conservatory tomorrow. Man Bao was imprisoned in Huangzhuang for half a month. He felt a little craving for barbecue, so he urged Yin Or, who was not sensible, to say, "Conservatory, you need both popularity and anger, let's barbecue, there is enough fire, and we have eaten a meal. Keep your house warm." Bai Dalan and others, I have never heard anyone say that the conservatory needs to eat barbecue. But Yin probably didn't know, he thought seriously and said, "Would you like to eat roast lamb or roast venison?" Man Bao was surprised, "There is still venison." Yin he smiled and said, "Yes, there are some deer raised in 11 inner garden." Now it's almost autumn, as long as you can hunt them. For the guards, hunting is not difficult. Yin Or didn't need to look for his father, he just asked a few uncles and brothers to mention it, and someone would bring it over. Half of the imperial guards are the children of nobles, and the remaining half are the outstanding soldiers selected from the various armies. Although Yin Or seldom played with them, no, never played with them, but as long as he saw his father, he would inevitably meet some people. Especially in the past few years, he has been studying in the Chongguan Museum. Every 10 days, he is taken by his father to the West Inner Garden, and then takes a shortcut from the West Inner Garden to the East Palace. There are also 2 riding and archery lessons every 10 days. Yuan Shang, although every time he mounts and shoots, he sits and watches by himself, or rides around in the West Inner Garden by himself, but his communication with them inevitably increases. This is a lot to have feelings, and once you have feelings, it's easy to say something when you ask for it. Yin Or asked Chang Shao to find someone, so in the evening someone sent a deer to Yin Or's private house. He died, but the blood was still flowing. Man Bao and the others helped Yin Or buy things back, and they watched curiously when they saw the deer that was delivered. Man Bao looked around and said, "The buck, it's a good thing." Bai Dalan and Bai Shan. Bai Erlang asked, "It's all venison, what's the difference? Is the male venison more tender?" Man Bao said, "Because there are deer antlers and deer whips." Shirojiro. Man Bao pointed at its horns and said, "See, its horns are still tender and not yet ossified. The first time the deer antler was cut off, it will grow again. It's no wonder that our hospital is never short of deer antlers." It turns out that deer are raised in the West Inner Garden for antlers. Bai Shansheng was afraid that she would talk about the deer whip next, so he quickly changed the subject and said, "Yin Or, do you have a cook in this house? Would you like me to bring 2 cooks from home to help tomorrow?" "There are still cooks, but there is only 1 person." Yin has no experience in greenhouses, so he nodded and said, "Then I'll leave it to you." The next morning, Bai Shan and the others came first, and brought 2 cooks from the family, with Aunt Rong as the master. Yin he did not eat less of the food she made, and when he saw her, he smiled and said, "Why did you bring your chef?" Bai Shan smiled and said, "Sister-in-law, he is also good at cooking now. Auntie Rong is familiar with banquets and understands all the rules." After Mrs. he and the others came back from the western regions, they hesitated for a while and did not go back to their hometown immediately. Instead, they chose to sell themselves and signed a living contract with the Bai family, planning to work in the Bai family for 5 years, and then return after saving some money. Township. Maybe she won't choose to go back in 5 years, not necessarily. When I was in the western regions, I wanted to come back because I missed the customs of the Central Plains, but when I really returned to the Central Plains, I would find that my hometown didn't have many relatives that I cared about. Going back would mean trouble. Yes, as long as it is in the Central Plains, in a familiar environment. She doesn't like the western regions, where there is too much sand, what she wears and eats, and even how she speaks is different from them. She is a strange person there, and because of her different looks, everyone sees her differently. But when she arrived in the capital, she didn't have that feeling anymore, especially in Zhou's house. There were people in the inner Dao, and there were people in Jianese Dao. She could even speak the hometown dialect with Jianxi and others, so she didn't want to leave so much. Mrs. Lu put her under Aunt Rong. In the past 6 months, she and Aunt Rong have learned a lot of dishes. At least the dishes made are good even by Mrs. Lu. As for Bai Shan and the others, they walked through the western regions and ate her meals and snacks for nearly a year. They thought it was very good, at least much better than what they and the guards produced. Yin he beckoned someone and said with a smile, "I'll ask Aunt Rong to take Auntie Rong to the kitchen." The one who came forward was a young man with a white and elegant face. When he saw Zhou Man, he showed a bright smile and stepped forward to salute, "Meet Mr. Zhou." Man Bao let out a "Ha, it's Suan." Suan smiled and nodded. Yin Or said, "He is now the housekeeper in my house. He doesn't like to use the servants of the Yin mansion very much, maybe because the impression he left in the past was not very good, and now most of the people who use it in his own county mansion are selected from Zhuangzi." Chang Shao wanted to serve him personally, so he simply handed over the mansion to Suan to manage. Over the years, Suan has been taking care of the yard for him in Yin's house, and he basically does not go out. In the Yin's house, he only listens to Yin or one person, who is more alone than Chang Shao, so Yin or specially brings people to his private house. Man Bao looked at him with a look of relief. Yes, yes, now I am the housekeeper, and I will definitely have a bright future in the future. Yin Or, how can there be a bright future? He glanced at her. Suan blushed slightly, smiled shyly, and said, "Master, the garden is ready, would you like to take the guests to sit in the garden?" Yin he nodded. It was the first time he treated guests alone as a host, but he often visited Zhou Man's house, so he recalled the process of being entertained by Zhou Man and Bai Shan, and said sideways, "I'll take you to the garden." This mansion was given by the emperor, and it is naturally much smaller than the Yin mansion. There is no set courtyard in the three-entry yard, so it is connected to the end, but there is also a small garden at the back. There is also a small pavilion where Yin Or decides to barbecue and eat here. It is cool and ventilated in all directions. See you at 9. I went to review Suan, so the baby shed 2 tears, and then came back to continue writing. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2478. Bai Shan and the others happily drank 2 cups of tea in the pavilion before the guests came. Because it was a temporary decision to invite guests, even the post was written on the fly, and only a few people who were close to him were invited. Feng Zonping and Yi Ziang Zhao Liaolang met at the door. As soon as they entered the door, they knew that they were the only ones who saw them today. Also, with Yin Or's character, it's rare enough to invite them. It's just strange, why didn't the Yin family help him handle it? Feng Zonping asked curiously, "Are you going to live here from now on?" Yin Or nodded, "If you have something to come to me in the future, you can come here first." It was the first time that Yin he hosted a banquet by himself, and he was not very experienced, while Bai Shan and the others guided them based on their own memory. Anyway, there are a lot of delicious food. So they bought a lot of delicious things yesterday, including vegetables and meat, as well as dried and fresh fruits. At this time they sat down, and the fresh fruit was loaded and delivered one by one. Zhao Liaolang and the others were inexperienced, so they found a comfortable place in the pavilion to sit down and ate the fruit plate. After a while, Suan brought someone out to bring out the barbecue stove and the processed venison, put it on the iron plate, and after lighting the fire, he glanced at Yin Or retreated, and let them roast by themselves. Yin Or they are already very experienced in roasting meat, and the roasted meat is very tasty, no worse than that made by a home cook. Seeing their skilled craftsmanship, Zhao Liaolang sat up straight with interest. "Okay, I haven't seen you for a year and you should be impressed. Did you go to the western regions to study?" Bai Shan nodded, turning over the meat while holding the meat, and said, "We went all the way, and the most food we ate was barbecue." Man Bao added, "And naan." Feng Zonping smiled and said, "Then we will eat without our hands today, it's all up to you." There were a lot of people in the meeting, and the few of them roasted enough for the 3 of them, so Bai Shan nodded. While eating roasted venison, eat some fruit to relieve tiredness. When everyone is almost exhausted, the kitchen says, "Master, the dishes are ready, where do you think they are placed?" Zhao Liaolang and others, who rarely came to the door to drink and eat barbecue, were feeling happy, and they were stunned when they heard the sentence, "Is there any more dishes?" Yin Or said as it should be, "There must be vegetables at the banquet." Zhao Liaolang. He touched his unpretentious stomach, looked left and right and asked Feng Zonping, can you still eat? Feng Zonping paused for a while and said, I can barely eat some. Man Bao also felt that the barbecue was too delicious, and the fruit was delicious, and he was full, so he said, I can't hold on, keep it for now, we'll have another meal in the evening. Zhao Liaolang stared, can he still eat like this? But this is Yin or the master, as long as he says yes, then he can, so he and Suan said, tell the kitchen, keep the dishes you haven't made yet, and use the ones you have already made, and make them later. Table. Suan responded, bowed, and stepped back. Zhao Liaolang rushed to Yin or gave a thumbs up, you are amazing. Leaning on the cushion on his back, he also relaxed a lot. He bent one leg and asked, you live here, and your grandmother and father are also willing. Yin he smiled and said, I'm just happy, my grandmother and father won't interfere too much. Zhao Liaolang was very envious. Yin he twitched the corners of his mouth, but there was nothing to admire, his grandmother just couldn't beat him. Moreover, his sixth sister is pregnant. During this time, his grandmother's energy is all on the sixth sister. Yin or took a sip of the fruit wine happily, but it was only one sip, no more. He asked Man Bao, are you going to enter Huangzhuang later? Man Bao nodded. Xiao Yuan is saying that as long as someone is vaccinated, they will go in. By the way, doesn't your majesty want the guards to be vaccinated? When Bai Shan mentioned that he wanted to inoculate Bai Shan and the others with cowpox, Zhao Liaolang was startled and asked, isn't it the best way to inoculate people under the age of 16? Man Bao, that's right, but they are not too different in age. In the future, everyone has to travel far, so it's better to vaccinate them. Feng Zonping and Yi Xiang immediately said, can we also vaccinate? Man Bao nodded. The two of them thought about it, and honestly, deep down, they were a little scared, but they also wanted to be immune to smallpox. So the two looked at each other and said, we also want to try it. Zhao Liaolang thought about it for a while, and then said, how about you plant one for my son? Man Bao, how old is he? Don't cheat on your son. She looked him up and down. Zhao Liaolang's back felt chills, for fear that she would say you're almost there, but Zhou Man shook his head and didn't say a word. Zhao Liaolang didn't feel relieved at all, but felt even colder. Man Bao and Feng Zonping Yi Xiang said, I'll feel your pulse. I really want to get a pox. I'll go back and report to the Imperial Hospital. It should be fine. Nowadays, His Majesty is very concerned about this matter, and I wish that people all over the world would take the initiative to vaccinate. So not only did he not get angry when the officials of the court asked for leave to vaccinate, but he also took the initiative to tell the heads of various departments that they should not stop officials who wanted to vaccinate from taking leave. Naturally, the quasi-concubines who were not within the age range for vaccination also took the initiative to request vaccination, and the emperor agreed with a wave of his hand. So Bai Erlang decided to go in with Bai Shan to vaccinate. When Bai Shan heard this, he immediately prepared various books and papers for the exam in advance. He said, you will have to take the Jinshi exam in 2 months, so you can't waste half a month. Shirojiro. Yin he couldn't help laughing when he saw it, and said, would you like me to ask Mr. Chang Guen for some papers from last year? Bai Shan nodded, excellent. Lu Huan, who had already passed the Mingjing test and officially entered the official position, giggled, as happy as an old hen. Bai Erlang saw that everyone was bullying him, so he turned to Yin or bullying, while we are in Huangzhuang, you will be studying in Changguan Hall alone. If the prince temporarily asks for politics. Yin he said, I told my father that I have been unwell recently, so I plan to take a half-month vacation with Changguan Museum to recuperate. He smiled slightly and said, I plan to go to Hyogyo Temple to worship Buddha and relax. Shirojiro. Now it's Man Bao's turn to be happy. Seeing his resentment, Man Bao said, "You are content, Yin or Mingda both want to get acne, but their bodies are not suitable, but Chang Yu is suitable, but unfortunately your majesty has too many problems and is unwilling to let the princes and daughters come to the emperor. Chuang, he plans to clean up a palace in the Daming Palace to inoculate the emperor's children and grandsons." When Man Bao said this, he sighed, "I heard that His Majesty ordered King Gong to bring his sons and daughters to Beijing, and he has to rush to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival together. By Shandao, it is clear that all the princes are ordered to bring their children back to Beijing, not just King Gong. The official document of this will was written by him." Man Bao said, "Isn't it almost the same? The first to arrive must be Prince Gong. See you tomorrow." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2479. It was indeed King Gong who arrived in the capital first. After all, Luozu was not very far from the capital. It's just that Zhou Man was locked up in Huangzhuang when he arrived, and the vaccination business was still proceeding in an orderly manner, and the Taiyuan hospital began to transfer its technology to the imperial doctor's office. Zhou Man and Lu Tai took 5 students alone, from cultivating cowpox. To determine the toxicity of vaccinia began to learn. In fact, it is not difficult, as long as 2 hands will be. The students of the Imperial Physician Department also began to vaccinate against smallpox. When they are all immune to smallpox, it will be much easier to do research on smallpox. Xiao Yuanzheng is discussing with Lu Tai Zhou Man. After a period of time, he will call all the pharmacies and hospitals in the capital. If there is no accident, the Taiyuan hospital will also teach them the technique of vaccination. This is Zhou Man's proposal. Because the Mid-Autumn Festival was approaching, Man Bao couldn't help but miss his other 2 apprentices when he brought Lu Sunyang, especially the Mid-Autumn Festival gifts that Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao gave her had already been delivered to the house in advance, so Zhou Man missed them even more. So she proposed to send the staff of the local medical office back to Beijing for training. She said, "Since your majesty intends to let more people get vaccinated with cowpox, then this technology must be handed over to the local medical office." Xiao Yuanzhen naturally knew that, but he didn't want to teach his students so quickly. His plan was to teach after 10,000 people. Man Bao said, "As soon as the guards are vaccinated, the goal of 10,000 people is not far away. Moreover, we are currently understaffed." On the Huangzhuang side, the Taiyuan hospital dispatched medical assistants to her and Tai Lu, but the manpower was still insufficient. Moreover, cultivating cowpox also requires a lot of manpower. This has been done by her and Imperial Physician Lu, which takes up a lot of time. She said, "It takes time to bring people back, and it is impossible for the local medical office not to keep people. It takes 2 or even more batches to come back to study, which will take longer. The sales are also high, so I think it is better to count the short than the long." And since he has already counted the lengths, Man Bao didn't mind to make more lengths, and said directly, "The world is so big that I can't walk all over the world with 2 feet. I think that if you really want to do a good job of vaccination, you must have someone who is in charge of it." Man Baodao, moreover, the world is newly born, the national strength is getting stronger and stronger, and the population will grow faster and faster. Every year, there are a large number of newborn children. These children need to be vaccinated when they grow up to a certain age, so this industry will not decline. Therefore, I propose to add a vaccination department in the Imperial Physician Department, which is specially responsible for studying, cultivating pox, inoculating vaccinia, and conducting research on safer vaccinia. Imperial Physician Lu and many other imperial physicians were stunned, and Imperial Physician Xiao was also stunned, and after he was stunned, he finally remembered his official job, the imperial physician. He finally thought about the prospect of preventing and controlling smallpox. To be honest, he scoffed at the emperor's words that smallpox would become extinct in the future, because political stability is very difficult, and once the emperor and the courtiers, he estimated, how long your majesty will live, and how long will you live? How long will things last, and in the future? Xiao Yuanzheng glanced at Zhou Man. If the successor is really His Royal Highness, the possibility of continuing this matter is extremely high, but if there is a replacement. Anyway, Xiao Yuan wouldn't plan things that far. He planned things next year at most. And his plan for the Taiyuan hospital on vaccination next year is to have 10,000 people vaccinated and get the data of 10,000 people. But Zhou Man had already planned to leave for 3 years, and she even whispered to Xiao Yuanzheng, Dr. Lu told me, Yuanzheng, you are worried about the emperor and the courtier, the stall is too big now, and in the future it is our imperial hospital that suffers backlash. But you must know that as doctors, our most powerful thing is not the responsibility of imperial physicians, but the things in our minds about treating diseases and saving people. Now all the things we have borrowed from the national power and His Majesty's internal treasury can be inherited. The big deal is to hand over the technology to more people. In the future, even if the Imperial Medical Office is not there, the local medical office will be cancelled, and even the Imperial Hospital is not there. Yes, but our technology exists, so it's not a loss. So Zhou Man pushed Xiao Yuan to recruit private doctors to teach them how to vaccinate and treat smallpox, as well as acupuncture and moxibustion. To be honest, after Xiao Yuanzheng and Zhou Man talked, the whole person was in a trance. He couldn't help but look at Zhou Man and couldn't speak for a long time. In fact, he didn't know what to say to Zhou Man, because it was really can't get out. They have been working together for many years, and the two have frequent contacts, so they know each other very well. Xiao Yuan knew that Zhou Man liked to exchange medical skills with others, so she took a lot of prescriptions and theoretical medicine and exchanged 2 books with him. In the past 2 years, his medical skills have also improved. It is said that it is an exchange, but sometimes Zhou Man does not care about the gains and losses. For example, the acupuncture method she exchanged to them was turned into a medical book, and it was directly published in a book and taught to the students of the Imperial Physician Department. Sometimes, when she was teaching, if she mentioned the intractable diseases that she had consulted with them before, she would also teach the students what she had exchanged with them with great difficulty. The imperial physicians came forward to ask for advice, and she never hesitated. So, saying that it was an exchange, she just wanted to learn something from them, but she didn't really have the heart of treasure. Every imperial doctor in the imperial hospital now knows this, so they are very confused. It's easy to learn something from Zhou Man without paying a price, just don't let her know that you have good things in your hands. Because she doesn't know, if you ask her, she will probably teach you. If she knows, she must ask you to exchange things, otherwise she will never teach, and she will not be willing to teach others. But Zhou Man is too social and chatty. She knows who has a good book in the hospital, and what kind of powerful doctor your ancestors have produced. Moreover, to hide these, don't you have no advantage? Why do they begrudge their own medicine? In order not to teach the disciples and starve the master to death. But if you don't let people know that you have such ability in your hands, how can you say that you are full? He knew that with her state of mind, coupled with such talent and intelligence, no one in the entire Taiyuan hospital would be able to match her in the future. But he still underestimated her. He thought she was a big river, but in the end, she had the same mind as a vast ocean, so he had to teach everyone the results of 2 years of hard work. Xiao Yuanzheng was so heartbroken just thinking about it, he sat in the chair for a long time without speaking, and finally said, I have to ask Imperial Dr. Lu about this. Regarding the research on pox and vaccinia, Zhou Man is the first credit, and then the Dr. Lu is the second hero, especially the most important prescription for the treatment of smallpox is given by the Dr. Lu, so you must ask the Dr. Lu. Imperial physician Lu was naturally unwilling. See you at 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2480. How hard it was for Dr. Lu. That prescription has now been spread all over the country, but at least it has been exchanged for something. He was promoted last year, and half of it was due to the fact that he was on the front line, and the other half was due to the prescription. Whatever the ancestors left behind was not in vain. But this time, the process of cultivating pox and various questions about pox were all discovered by him and Zhou Man bit by bit. From the end of January to the present, he has stayed in Huangzhuang for half a year. In the past 6 months, he has only repaired less than 1/3 of the time, and the rest of the time is basically spent in Huangzhuang. In the 12 hours a day, apart from sleeping and eating, he basically studies this, otherwise he would go to the pharmacy to ponder the prescription, and his hair would fall out one by one. Because it was the emperor who injected capital, the Taiyuan hospital was in charge, and Zhou Man was the leader, so he did not refuse to teach colleagues in the Taiyuan hospital, nor did he begrudge students of the Taiyuan medical office, but even private doctors taught it, which was a bit too much. What is it that the predecessors planted the trees and the latter enjoyed the shade? That is, his predecessors planted trees, and his descendants could get the technology and enjoy the shade under the trees he planted. For example, he learned the skills left by his ancestors and entered the imperial hospital, and then took out the recipe to go further in the imperial hospital. Man Bao seemed to know what he was thinking, so after he rejected Xiao Yuan Zheng, he sat on the small stool with him and watched the sunset on the horizon. Imperial physician Lu knew that this suggestion was made by Zhou Man. It should be said that Zhou Man was the only one who would make such a suggestion in the entire imperial hospital. If it was someone else, he could spit directly on the face of the person, scolding the other person for wanting to eat swan meat, and wishing for the family's ancestral heritage. But because it was Zhou Man, he endured it. God knows how her heart grows, and she may be naturally unwilling, so it's not coveting at all, but that's what she thinks. So seeing her sitting over, imperial physician Lu raised the small stool and sat on the other side, disdained to share the table with Zhou Man. No, it was the same row. The medical assistants who had added subordinates and lived in the same yard were cautiously crowding the window to watch. Today, the dispute between imperial physician Lu and Xiao Yuan Zheng was heard by the medical assistant, and then it was spread to everyone. However, Xiao Yuan Zheng and the other imperial physicians had all left at this time, and there were only 2 imperial physicians left in the Huangzhuang, namely imperial physician Lu and imperial physician Zhou. Seeing imperial Dr. Lu being angry, Man Bao hesitated for a while, but still did not move the stool over. According to her original temper, it must be where he moved, she would move wherever, not to make the other party angry, but also to make people angry. Gosh. But think about it or forget it. Imperial physician Lu is not too young, so she should not be angry. Man Bao just sat still, with a distance of 30 feet from imperial Dr. Lu. If the yard was bigger, it would be as far as the Milky Way projected from the sky. Man Bao pondered his words, and after holding it for a long time, he still couldn't come up with any good consolation, and simply said directly, "How can you agree?" Imperial physician Lu glanced at her, and after being silent for a while, he still couldn't hold back a cold snort. "Dr. Zhou, you always want us to leave a livelihood for future generations, don't you?" Man Bao was puzzled. Everyone will get sick, and there will be people in the world, so there will be no less people who get sick. Even if there are more people who have learned medical skills, your descendants will be able to see the sick. Dr. Lu said, "But the ladder to the sky is only so wide, and there are few people, so there won't be too many people crowding with them." He said, "Emperor Zhou, not everyone can be as talented as you. The strengths of our descendants are what our ancestors have accumulated, and there is only so much we can leave for future generations. Man Bao opened his mouth, wanting to say the same words as her mother. Children and grandchildren will have their own children and grandchildren. She thought, we can't even guarantee our own future and our health. How can we plan for the future of our children and grandchildren? But looking at Imperial Physician Lu, who frowned, Man Bao still swallowed the words. There are parents who are generous in the world, and naturally there are parents who are worried about their children and grandchildren. Although Man Bao didn't quite understand their thoughts, he still did not refute, but said, Thai Physician Lu, now he is studying with us as a medical assistant for vaccination, the students of the Imperial Physician Department who will study with us in the future, and those who will return to the capital. The local medical bureau personnel, they will also spread the technology in the future, but it will be a few years slower than our active teaching today, or 10 or 20 years. When your children and grandchildren need to use these technologies, they say it may have spread all over the country. Dr. Lu's face darkened. Man Bao continued, this is like rice and wheat. After humans knew that this thing was edible and could be artificially planted, they spread. Now the whole world, all the places we know of, can grow rice seeds. Rice, the wheat that can grow wheat. Imperial Physician Lu proudly said, medicine is not something you can learn if you want to, and what you can learn is more complicated than farming. Man Bao does not deny this, but you must know that medical technology is a technology related to life. It is not like other craftsmanship. People's pursuit of life has always been the greatest passion, no matter when. So a medicine, we are hiding it, and there will only be two results in the future, either cut off the inheritance and annihilate in history, or spread it across the country and be known to all doctors. Man Bao can have this understanding not only because she is smarter than the average person, but more importantly, she has always been a medical teacher MRMO. Teacher MO is standing in the interstellar civilization and looking back, teaching Man Bao on the way back. When looking for the prescriptions left over from the long history, he knew that there were more things that disappeared than things that remained. He lamented with Man Bao more than once the disappearance of these skills and medicine, and many things became historical mysteries. It's a pity that people don't know the meaning no matter how much effort they spend on research. If it was something else, Man Bao would not dare to pass it on lightly, because for some things, it is better to disappear than to exist, and it is more beneficial to spread on a small scale than to spread on a large scale. But this is a medical technique to cure diseases and save people, especially smallpox. This is a historically intractable disease. For thousands of years, almost all doctors have been helpless when faced with it. Boil yourself. Now that there are prescriptions for preventing smallpox, Man Bao doesn't want such a thing to happen again. She said, Dr. Lu, I think since it will spread in the future, why don't we take the initiative, so that we can get some good names? She tempted, maybe it will be famous in the future. Imperial Physician Lu was not very moved. I'm not a civil servant, what name do you want to keep in history? He likes tangible benefits. When Man Bao heard this, he was a little angry, and wanted to say that I would just exchange something with you, but before the words could be said, Imperial Physician Lu sighed, forget it, just pass it on if you want. When Man Bao reached his mouth, he immediately swallowed it back into his stomach, and asked curiously, why did you suddenly agree? Man Bao, I'm stingy too, I'll save it for another good thing next time. See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2481. Lu Tai said depressedly, the data we recorded and all the process of the experiment are in the archives of the Taiyuan Hospital. People in the Taiyuan Hospital can learn it, and people in the Tai Medical Office can also learn it. In the future, people who can master the skill will only more and more. My descendants have already competed with the descendants of so many people. How much difference does it make if there are more descendants of folk doctors outside? Man Bao couldn't help but said, you just thought of this. In fact, She had wanted to ask this question for a long time, but she felt that she wanted to quarrel. After all, she wanted to ask others, so she didn't have a good idea. Who knew that Imperial Physician Lu didn't think of this? Imperial Physician Lu glanced at her, couldn't help but snorted heavily, got up and went back to the house. Man Bao was stunned, and immediately jumped up and chased after him. Dr. Lu, I didn't mean that, I definitely didn't mean to underestimate you. Seeing that he was about to close the door, angrily entering the room, Man Bao immediately pressed against the door. Really, I really didn't mean that. You are still quite smart, but you may not have thought of this for a while. Feeling that the more the explanation, the worse the explanation, Man Bao immediately gave up the explanation and said directly, why don't you do this? When the Imperial Physicians Department opens up the Department of Vaccination, how about I recommend you to be the chief officer? The door of Imperial Physician Lu was not closed. Man Bao breathed a sigh of relief. Although the Imperial Physicians in the Imperial Physician Office are all teachers, the salaries of the teachers are also different because of the different positions. The official of the Imperial Physician's Office is of course the part-time officer of Xiao Yuan, who has the highest salary, and then the chief officer of the departments of medicine and acupuncture. The chief officer of Chinese medicine is Lu Tai, and the chief officer of acupuncture is Zhou Man. Under the doctor, there are also subjects such as physical therapy, SOR, and primary school. Even though Zhou Man has not taught in the Imperial Medical Office for the past 2 years, she is still the chief officer of this department and still receives the salary. Because right now, she is compiling almost all the acupuncture and moxibustion techniques she has learned in the Imperial Physician's Office. This year, the production is relatively small, and she has only compiled 1 book. Imperial Physician Lu also took a lot of classes, but he was not the chief officer, so he was lower than Zhou Man in the Imperial Physician's Office. Imperial Physician Lu opened the half-closed door and asked Zhou Man, you are still the first in the method of inoculating pox. Do you want to give me the position of the first official? Man Bao, she's not 3 heads and 6 arms. Although it's good to have money, she doesn't want to take on so many errands, okay. Man Bao really didn't feel heartache at all, but Imperial Physician Lu didn't believe it, so he was very kind to her for several days. Even Xiao Yuan Zheng couldn't help but look sideways. But he didn't dare to ask, and Dr. Lu agreed after a long time, but he didn't dare to start the conversation again, it would be bad if it aroused his mind. Then Man Bao asked about the addition of subjects to the Imperial Physician's Office. Xiao Yuan Zheng said, this matter is not difficult, I will write a letter to Taikang Temple and add it later. Since it is to teach the method of vaccinating, the actual study cannot be in the Imperial Physician's Office, and it will definitely still have to go to Huangchuang. Come on, the extra money is not much. So it's not hard to open. But Taikang Temple refused. Xiao Yuanzhen was so shocked that he was speechless after receiving the official letter of approval from Taikang Temple. He didn't ask Taikang Temple to allocate too much extra money, so how could he not agree? Xiao Yuan was very angry, so he went to Zhou Man, and brought Zhou Man to Taikang Temple to seek justice. It was rare for Man Bao to go to the palace, and he was going around the palace to ask for the ping and pulse for the empresses in the palaces, but he was still a little stunned when someone from Xiao Yuan came over and asked, so you asked me to go to Taikang Temple for the sake of? Naturally, I asked the reason, and then argued for it. Man Bao was confused, shouldn't that be looking for Imperial Physician Lu or Imperial Physician Lu? Imperial Physician Lu is the deputy, and Imperial Physician Lu is the chief officer of the newly added subjects. Xiao Yuanzheng, they are not as eloquent as you are. When Man Bao heard this, he stopped, and Xiao Yuan was looking back at her, squinting slightly. Why, Imperial Physician Zhou is unwilling to contribute to the Imperial Physician's Office. No, Man Bao said, how did you approve the official document? Xiao Yuanzheng, how else can I reply? I just wrote that I disagree. Man Bao said, then why are you looking for them? Go to His Majesty. She dragged Xiao Yuanzheng, turned around and went in the other direction. She said, Taikang Temple didn't even write the reason, obviously it just doesn't want us to add more, and that's the case. It's a waste of coral to find them, and it's useless at all. Go to His Majesty. The superior department of Taiyuan Hospital is Taikang Temple. Xiao Yuan is used to reporting to Taikang Temple when there is something wrong. The smallpox matter is too big, and the emperor will often ask questions. But should I go directly to the emperor for this kind of thing? And still complaining. Before Xiao Yuanzheng could sort out his thoughts, Man Bao had already dragged him halfway, and as soon as he looked up, he was in front of the Taiji temple. No way, Xiao Yuanzheng took a deep breath and went to Taiji Hall with Zhou Man. In fact, he knew deep down that Zhou Man was right. Even if they went to Taikang Temple, even if it was useful, it would take a lot of effort and time. It would be better to go directly to the emperor. Even the imperial physician's office was opened only after the ducks were put on the shelves. This was the first time that he had done this kind of secret complaint to the emperor. Dark rub. That's impossible, Man Bao went to complain openly. Outside the Taiji Hall, Man Bao told the doorman that he wanted to see the emperor. The emperor had just finished a round of political inquiries, and at this time, he was drinking afternoon tea with his beloved ministers to empty his mind and gossip. By the way, King Gong is also there. He is naturally not qualified to participate in these government affairs, but he is here to deliver fruit plates and snacks to his dear father. The prince is also there. He is here to participate in government affairs, and at this time is sitting in his place eating melons. It's true that I eat melons. Now that autumn has just entered, all kinds of melons and fruits have been harvested. The melons and fruits in the palace are fresh every day, and the variety and quantity are guaranteed. He had said a lot just now, his throat was a little dry, and when he heard Zhou Man begging to see him, he glanced at Bai Shan, who was sitting with Ho Zhulang. The emperor's laughter came from his ears. Let them in. So Xiao Yuan and Zhou Man entered together, and after the ceremony, they found that there were many people there. Basically, as long as these people present agreed to add subjects, the objection of Taikang Temple would be invalid. So Man Bao gave Xiao Yuanzheng an encouraging look, but he did not expect that Xiao Yuanzheng was also giving Zhou Man an encouraging look. One big and one small stared at each other silently, then looked away after a while and looked up at the emperor together. Seeing that they had not spoken for a long time, the emperor was also a little depressed. Seeing them, he asked, "Why, is there something wrong with the Daming Palace?" "That's right, the Daming Palace is being arranged. The emperor decided to let the emperor's sons and grandsons who are suitable for vaccination go to the Daming Palace to vaccinate after the Mid-Autumn Festival. Before that, there will be no new vaccination personnel at the Huangzhuang for the time being." The emperor asked Taiyuan Hospital to urge the renovation of Daming Palace during this time, and Xiao Yuan wanted to take this opportunity to add subjects. "See you tomorrow." "Well, the relatives and her old man are finally gone, you can add more tomorrow, ha 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 ha." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2482. Xiao Yuanzheng didn't speak, Man Bao could only take the initiative to speak up. Of course, she didn't complain directly. Bai Shan said that the emperor didn't really like courtiers quarreling in front of him. The emperor after the courtier would be silently angry for a while. Therefore, Man Bao directly mentioned their purpose, first mentioned the effect of the cowpox method, and then mentioned its prospects, and finally said that he would specially train people with acne in the imperial physician's office. After all, the imperial physicians in the imperial hospital cannot always travel between the imperial palace and the imperial village. There is no problem in 1 or 2 years, but in 10 or 20 years, it takes a lot of extra time because of part-time jobs. The emperor glanced at the two of them in surprise, and asked, "So your imperial physician office will set up additional subjects for the cultivation of pox and the prevention and treatment of smallpox?" Manbao responded with a yes and added, "Your Majesty, there should be a way to prevent and treat diseases in the world. It is very difficult with the current medical skills, but I believe that as long as I concentrate on research, results will be produced one day. Therefore, the vaccination department is not only limited to for smallpox, we can also target other epidemics in the future. There are also many kinds of epidemics, and no matter which one is very harmful, many people die every time they appear." Not only the emperor, but also the other ministers in the hall could not help but sit up straight. After a little seriousness, Wei Ji asked, "How much does it cost to set up a new ministry?" As one of the prime ministers of Dajin, this was one of his greatest concerns. Manbao looked at Xiao Yuanzheng. Xiao Yuanzheng knew this the most. After all, he wrote the official document and handed it over to Taikang Temple not long ago, and the details of the expenses were listed on it. Because it is a subordinate department, and the Taiyuan Hospital and Taikang Temple are not very close. This is determined by the particularity of the Taiyuan Hospital. The Taikang Temple in the palace directly obeys the emperor. Of course, the Taikang Temple also obeys the orders, but does the Taikang Temple dare to order the Taiyuan Hospital? Taikang Temple did not even dare to inquire about the medical records in the Taiyuan Hospital. If Taikang Saiking dared to look at it, he was afraid that he would sue him for spying on the emperor just after he left the hospital with his forefoot. This is taboo. Moreover, half of the expenses of the Taikang Hospital were applied for through the Taikang Temple and the National Treasury, and the other half was subsidized by the emperor's internal treasury. Like the purchase of general medicinal materials, a list is made and sent to the Taikang Temple for stamping and then sent to the Ministry of Households, which will allocate funds from the Ministry of Households. But if you want to buy very precious medicinal materials, such as Tianshan snow lotus, hundreds of years of ginseng and Ganoderma lucidum, etc., it is too troublesome to go to the household department to get the money, and you need to go back and forth several procedures. So Tai Hospital and Taikang Temple are not close. The Imperial Physician's office was run by the Imperial Physician's Hospital, and naturally it was the same. Therefore, because they were not close, Xiao Yuanzheng humbly tried to save money when writing the list, so as to avoid the Taikang Temple looking for things like too much spending and insufficient funds. The excuse was rejected. But who knew that Taikang Temple still rejected him, and he didn't give any excuses, it was too much. At this time, Xiao Yuanzheng did not raise the price of goods, and reported directly, because of the special smallpox, it is not suitable to cultivate pox and inoculation in the imperial physician's office, so the minister thought of continuing to use Huangzhuang. He said, "Everything in Huangzhuang is ready-made, and there is no need for extra expenses." The emperor nodded slightly. Anyway, Huangzhuang belonged to him. Taking Huangzhuang to study smallpox only took up some space. In addition to the labor department, Huangzhuang could also be transferred to save money and effort, which is not bad. Xiao Yuanzheng continued, "As for the imperial physician's office, we only need to build 2 more classrooms and 2 dormitories. The books used for teaching, acupuncture and moxibustion can be shared with other departments in the imperial physician's office, except for the purchase of preventive medicine. The cost of the medicinal materials for smallpox has been paid, and the list has been handed in before, so it is not very expensive." The lords nodded slightly, and Wei Ji spoke up on behalf of everyone, "Your Majesty, it is possible to add more, but are the imperial doctors in the imperial hospital busy?" Xiao Yuanzheng immediately said, "Lu Tai has a lot of experience in the prevention and treatment of smallpox, and I want to mention that he is the chief officer of this department, who is specially responsible for this matter. Jia Shizhou and several other imperial doctors will assist in teaching from the side, although it is more difficult, but it should still be responsible." King Gong, who had been sitting the whole time, interjected, "Didn't you say that the development of the smallpox vaccine was full of achievements last week? How could Imperial Dr. Lu be the chief officer?" Man Bao just looked up at him and said, returning to King Gong, "I don't dare to take the first credit. In the past 2 years, Imperial Physician Lu has worked diligently and made great contributions to the prevention and treatment of smallpox, especially the painstaking efforts in the past 6 months. He personally participated in every data and made great contributions, so he was convinced by the chief officials." Humph, Prince Gong wouldn't be kind enough to raise a point. He was either trying to sow discord or trying to exhaust me. No matter what, she wouldn't let him succeed. Man Bao blew Tai Dr. Lu's flattery and shaped his image. Xiao Yuanzheng glanced at her and said, "Tai Dr. Lu has indeed contributed a lot to the research on the prevention and treatment of smallpox, and his other medical skills are not bad either. Your Highness Prince Gong should know about this." Man Bao's eyes lit up, and he immediately looked at Prince Gong with a fiery look. That's right, King Gong used to like to use Imperial Physician Ji the most. Later, when Imperial Physician Ji became an official, his favorite Imperial doctor was Imperial Physician Lu. Humph, you are dragging Imperial Physician Lu in front of the Emperor. Does Imperial Physician Lu know? King Gong choked, his face remained calm, but he was very disdainful in his heart. As a prince, he is not going to bribe the doctor, only the doctor takes the initiative to take refuge. It's just that whether it was the former Imperial Dr. Ji or the former Imperial Dr. Lu, they did not express their surrender to him, but he was used to them. In general, doctors also like to see the same person, that is, Man Bao. Although she likes all kinds of fresh cases, she actually likes to see the same person, so that the changes in the condition can be easily understood. However, such a thing as a doctor would not say it. After all, it is not auspicious. People who go to the silver building and gold shop can tell the distinguished guests to come again next time, but can the pharmacy and the medical center say the same? When the emperor saw his son deflated, he couldn't help but glance at him. He didn't understand what he was thinking. It was obvious that he would suffer for Zhou Man every time, but he didn't have a long memory. Next time, he would try to tease others. The prince was already drinking tea quietly, ignoring the younger brother who used to be furious every time he saw him. The emperor thought for a while, and simply took out the matter that had been under pressure for a few months. If that's the case, let's add it, name it Vaccine Department, and then specialize in the prevention and treatment of epidemic diseases like vaccinia. The formula? The emperor said, now there is only one disease that can be prevented, smallpox, so start with smallpox. See you at 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2483. The Emperor continued, now you not only have to manage the Imperial Hospital and the Imperial Physician's Office, but also the various local medical offices are under your management. In the future, the local medical offices will only open more and more for the cultivation of cowpox. The quality is not enough. The Emperor pondered for a moment and then said, a decree. Bai Shan, who had been kneeling with Ziwihilang, immediately took the inkstone to the right of Ziwihilang, and waited with a pen and ink. Kijulang glanced at him, and Nian didn't say anything about the friendship he had been studying for him in the past few months. Separating the Taiyuan Hospital from the Taiyakang Temple, the Emperor has been thinking about it for 4 months, and the big bosses in the court naturally know that behind the back of Xiao Yuanzhen, the courtiers also discuss this with the Emperor, and there are objections. Yes, of course there is support. There are various reasons, but it is undeniable that if the Taiyakang Hospital wants to develop as described in Zhou Man Baishan's envelope, it will no longer be under the Taiyakang Temple's hands. Because Tai Chang held the mausoleum temple group sacrifices, rituals, music, and astronomy, the number of clothes and crowns, has not changed much in the past dynasties, and it has its own scope. If the imperial physician department expands too much under its hands, it will inevitably take up its own resources and energy, then Taikang Temple will lose its own value. Therefore, if the imperial physician's office is to develop into what Zhou Man and Bai Shan and Bai Cheng described in the book, not only to train a large number of medical personnel, but also to open the medical office to every county in Dajin, which itself requires greater power. Just do it. After 4 months of psychological construction and the remarkable achievements of the Thai hospital's vaccination against vaccinia during this period, the ministers were actually mentally prepared. It's just that everyone has been waiting for an opportunity. The emperor is also waiting. Originally thought that they would wait until they have vaccinated 10,000 people and decided to promote the cowpox method to the whole country, but I didn't expect the time to come so soon. The emperor immediately issued a decree to separate the imperial hospital from the Taikang temple and set up the imperial medical office, which was on the same level as the 6 departments of the Shangzhou. At the same time, an imperial hospital was set up in the palace, under the jurisdiction of the imperial medical department. This reverses the current order. Now, the imperial college is under the jurisdiction of the imperial college. The imperial college is a teacher with no grade. When it was set up, it was only rough to let Xiao Yuan be right, and at the same time let Xiao Yuan manage the local doctors' department. In front of the order of the imperial physician's office, in fact, like the teacher's Zhou Man, he only took an extra stipend, and the rest was nothing. But now it's the other way around, but Xiao Yuanzhen's eyes immediately turned red. He was very excited. He never imagined that he would be promoted to the 3rd rank one day. This is simply unbelievable. The courtyard of the product is coming to an end. Xiao Yuan was about to cry, then he lowered his head, knelt on the ground with a plop, gave the emperor a sincere kowtow, and shouted loudly, "I will live up to your majesty's request." After knocking, he felt empty beside him, so he raised his head slightly to look at Zhou Man, whose eyes were also shining, stretched out his hand and tugged at her, making her kneel down too. Man Bao was stunned for a moment, then knelt down and said loudly, imitating Xiao Yuanzheng, "I would like to rub the ground for His Majesty's liver and brain, and then die." Xiao Yuanzheng was stunned for a moment, and glanced at Zhou Man with admiration. He felt that it would be very beneficial to study with the literati, at least speaking better than him. The emperor also felt that Zhou Man's words were nice. He smiled happily, raised his hand and said, "Get up, this matter has to be reviewed by the provincial government, you two should go back and prepare first. The promotion of a person is not a small project. After all, the tasks to be accepted will be different, not to mention the promotion of the entire department. First, their imperial physician department must have its own office in the imperial city or somewhere else. Some affairs can no longer be mixed with Taikang Temple. Not to mention that after the department is upgraded, the configuration and responsibilities of various officials will also change, and naturally, the treatment will also change. However, these cannot be solved by the emperor alone. It is necessary for the 2 departments of Zongshu and Mengxia to discuss them together, or to discuss them carefully. Xiao Yuanzheng happily kowtowed again and left. Man Bao also kowtowed, and then got up to go with Xiao Yuanzheng, but the emperor stopped her and said, "The queen may not see you for a long time, I miss you very much, in a while, follow me to see the queen." Man Bao was at a loss. Didn't she just go to ask the queen for a ping and pulse in the morning? Why haven't you seen it for so long? Man Bao returned to the palace, and some minor problems in the harem made the concubines uncomfortable, so they all summoned her to ask for the ping and mai. Since I wanted to ask for the ping and pulse, of course it started with the queen, so Man Bao went to see the queen in the morning, and then by the way, he showed the princess who asked for peace there, and also felt the pulse of Mingda and Changyu, and then she walked around the full harem, basically every concubine's palace she entered. If Xiao Yuan Zheng hadn't suddenly called someone, she would still want to go to some Zhaorong's courtyards to have a look. So, it's not that she hasn't seen the queen for a long time. I'm afraid that the last time she met, she was closer than the emperor saw the queen. Although he complained endlessly in his heart, Man Bao didn't say anything and silently stepped aside. The emperor looked at the ministers, held tea, and expressed their actions to say goodbye. So Wei Ji and the others got up knowingly and retire. As soon as they left, Bai Shan also got up with the written will and stepped forward to present it to the emperor. The emperor read it once and felt that Bai Shan's words and sentences were very appealing to him, so he nodded slightly and said, "Send it to Zhongsha province." Although Bai Shan has already drawn up a will, this will is not small, it is destined to be only a draft, and the Zhongsha province must study it again, otherwise it will be bad if it is called back by the province. Bai Shan responded, took the draft and looked up at Zhou Man slightly, then lowered his eyes and retreated. The emperor took Prince Gong and Zhou Man to the apse, and Ziwihu Lang, who was always inseparable, and followed. When we arrived at the queen's palace, it was very lively. By coincidence, the crown princess, Princess Gong, and several children were also there. Kijulang found his familiar corner, continued to take out his small notebook and pen and squatted, raised his head and looked at the emperor's family without sadness or joy. The emperor let Zhou Man sit down and asked her, "I want to give you full control over the Daming Palace, can you do it?" Man Bao was startled and asked, "Shouldn't Xiao Yuan be in charge of this matter?" The emperor said, "The imperial physician's office is going to be upgraded, and Xiao Yuan Zheng must be very busy. I think you are quite suitable." Man Bao, "She's busier, okay." What the emperor thought in his mind was that this time, 2/3 of the imperial children and grandchildren's family members were vaccinated. Of course, they had to be handed over to a female imperial doctor. Chang Yu was also among them. "It's a man, too careless, I'm afraid I can't take care of the girl's mind. See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2484. How can the royal family's children be so well taken care of? In particular, there is also an 8-year-old little prince and little princess, who are the two youngest children of the emperor. Although their mother and concubine are not very favored, the emperor always loves his children, even if he is a concubine and a concubine. They will come over and ask, so it is not easy to offend anyone. Not to mention the grandsons sent by the princes, there are really a lot of grandchildren. Except for the prince's son, who was still young, there were 2 or 3 princes among them. In order to express their loyalty, the concubines of the previous emperors sent their sons, daughters, grandchildren, and grandchildren of their own age. Man Bao has seen the list in the newspaper. To be honest, with her outstanding memory, she can't remember everyone now. A lot of people can be seen. She didn't want to get involved, but the emperor was her superior's superior, and it was even more difficult to refuse his request, so she sighed in her heart and responded calmly on her face. Satisfied, the emperor pointed to Princess Gong and said, "You children, it's been a while, but this time King Gong came from Luozhu and asked Princess Gong to prepare a gift for you." Man Bao was not flattered, she was only horrified. Prince Gong was also stunned for a moment, then turned his head to stare at Princess Gong. Princess Gong was a little embarrassed, but under the eyes of the emperor and Prince Gong, she still got up and walked to Zhou Man's side, took her hand and said with a smile, "I heard from the 2 younger sisters that Lord Zhou has already set a wedding date, so from Luo when Zhou came, I prepared some congratulatory gifts for Lord Zhou, so let's take it as a make-up." In fact, what she thought was that her son was about to get pox under the hands of others. Although the emperor said that pox was safe, she was still a little scared. There is still a big difference between a doctor who is dedicated and who is just due or negligent. and Zhou Man was in a high position in the Thai hospital, so she was a little worried. So when I came, I specially prepared a gift. I wanted to transfer it to Mingda, but when she was whispering to Mingda, the ant on the side overheard it, and the queen knew it. The queen told the emperor, who knew that the emperor pointed it out directly. The queen didn't expect it either, so she glanced at the emperor, and seeing that he was still looking at Princess Gong and Zhou Man who were talking happily, the queen withdrew her gaze. Forget it, apart from having some skills in the court, what else can this man expect from him? Princess Gong took Zhou Man to see the gifts, a makeup box of jewelry, a total of 3 layers, each layer was opened, the jewelry inside. Well, Man Bao, who has seen many gems and pearls, is not stunned, but his heart is also beating, which shows how good this jewelry is. Among them, pearl jewelry and exquisite gold jewelry are the most. Princess Gong directly opened the top floor, took out a golden hairpin and showed it to Zhou Man, and said with a smile, "This is a golden phoenix. I specially made a pair for you, Lord Zhou, do you like it?" Man Bao returned to his senses, and hurriedly declined, "Without merit, no reward, how can you accept such a heavy gift from Princess Gong?" Princess Gong smiled and said, "How could it be no merit? You helped Prince Gong lose weight before, and you also took care of the prince's injured leg. This is all credit. Full of shame, these two are not considered good things for King Gong, is it really not a grudge? What's more, your happy event is approaching, even without these antecedents, you can also bear this gift. My elephant will also be living in Daming Palace, and I will need more care from Lord Zhou in the future." Man Bao instantly understood in his heart that he was bribing me, and he was bribing in front of the emperor and empress. She was entangled, should she accept it or not? If you don't accept it, will the emperor and the queen feel that she doesn't want to befriend Prince Gong? Man Bao couldn't help looking at the jewelry in the makeup box. Although he felt that it was not good to accept bribes, it should be okay for those who have passed the emperor's bright road, right? When she was thinking about it, Mingda gently pushed her and said with a smile, "The third sister-in-law brought it to you from Luozhu, you can't let someone take it back, right? Chang Yu also said, since it is for you, you can accept it? Didn't you see her father coming over frequently?" Man Bao tried his best to suppress the smile on his face, but he still couldn't hold back the smiling nod between his brows. "Then I would like to thank Princess Gong." Man Bao paused and said, "Thank you, Prince Gong." Princess Gong could see that Zhou Man really liked it, and couldn't hide the smile between her brows and eyes, so she breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Lord Zhou likes it?" Like it naturally, she likes everything that is valuable and beautiful. So Man Bao happily returned to Tai Hospital with a makeup box. The Taiyuan Hospital was relatively quiet, because the official decree had not yet been issued, so he tried hard to hold back the feelings he shared with his subordinates, and once he returned to the Taiyuan Hospital, he locked himself in the office room and could not come out. When Man Bao came back with the makeup box, he was pulled by Zheng Tai and others. They frowned and said, "Zhou Tai, have you ever quarreled in Taikang Temple?" When Xiao Yuan came back just now, the circles of his eyes were all red. Man Bao still had a happy smile on his face, shook his head and said, "We didn't go to Taikang Temple." Even Imperial Physician Lu couldn't help frowning, "Didn't you all go to Taikang Temple to seek justice?" "Oh, we'll go to Taiji Hall to find His Majesty." Seeing that they still didn't know anything, Man Bao planned to share the good news with them. Suddenly Xiao Yuanzhen's office was opened, and he left. He came out and looked at Zhou Mandao, the Imperial Dr. Zhou. "The will has not yet been officially announced, so don't publicize this matter for the time being." Man Bao swallowed the words that came to his mouth, and nodded slightly with Zheng Tai, "Okay, then you wait 2 more days, and you will know when the will comes." Zheng Tai, agreeing. "Whether we add subjects is a matter of 1 sentence, why can't we say it?" Imperial Physician Lu kept a close eye on Zhou Man, and he was most concerned about whether or not to add a vaccination department, because it was related to his vital interests. Man Bao said, I can tell you this, and it can be added. Xiao Yuanzheng couldn't stop it, and closed his open mouth. Forget it, just tell them. Imperial physician Lu stared at Zhou Mangziying's face, and then turned to look at Xiao Yuanzheng. He couldn't help but patted his head. He was so dazzled, and he was wrong about the color. What was sad, he was clearly excited. Since it was a good thing, he stopped inquiring, turned around and went back to his office, and said, Dr. Zhou, it's your turn to check at Daming Palace today. Thinking of the promise of the emperor, Man Bao responded, I'll go in a while. Only then did Imperial physician Zheng look at the thing in her hand. What is this? Man Bao said happily, the gift that Princess Gong gave me, he. Everyone looked at the tall makeup box she was holding with envy or jealousy. This was the benefit of a female doctor, and it was much more convenient for them to accept bribes from the harem maids. Man Bao took the makeup box back to his office and locked it, and then went to Daming Palace by boat with his hands behind his back to check the progress of the project. The next chapter is around 10 o'clock. I wanted to have 2 chapters together, but it's still a little short.